Okay, this is something new to me. Yeah, I'm just going to quickly say a few words, and I'm going to turn over the whole section to Professor John Low. And then my name is Amy Chen. I'm the new accounting department chair, and welcome to our very first accounting workshop. And we are going to do more of the workshop in the future. But I would like to know what kind of topic you are interested in learning more about. So if you have certain topic you want to learn more about it, please email me or stop by my office and let me know. And then the department can organize more of this kind of workshop to help you. And the department really appreciate Professor John Low is willing to take his time to speak with us about the CPA exam criteria and the licensure criteria. So let's give Professor John Low a big round of applause for his time. And then without further ado, I'm going to turn over the whole section to Professor John Low to let him start talking about how to be a CPA, how you can prepare for the exam, and also how can you earn your license afterwards.
All right. Thank you so much, Amy. Thanks for letting me do this. Thanks, guys, for taking the time to come on in and hear about getting the CPA. I didn't come up with this picture. And CPA game changer I did come up with, and so now you know why I became an accountant, right? Because of my marketing skills aren't exactly that sharpened. You see some different names up here besides Amy. Yim Yu Wong is the interim dean for the business department. Oh, she is here. You want to come on up? Yes. Come on up and say a few words. Come on in. Come on up. Okay. So there she is. Just on cue. Thank you for coming. You met Amy. Elise Weber is in front. She is the former president of the Accounting Student Organization. Been graduated for a couple years now with BPM, one of the big CPA firms. And Elise is going to talk a little bit later in the presentation about how she got her license. She's now certified, going a little bit of a different route, registering to take the exam through Washington, right? And so we'll get some more about that. And I may pick your brain a little bit for some, how the exam feels these days versus back when I was a boy. When I took it, you had to do paper and pencil and all that sort of stuff. So we'll get more into that. I want to give a shout out to a couple of professors that are here. Professor Tien is here. How many of you are from his class? Okay, so he brought his whole class with him, so that's great. So thank you for doing that. And then I'm sure many of you have been through Charles Van's class at some point in time. Charles and I, are partners in crime teaching 100 and 101. Everybody says, oh, Professor Van's much nicer than you. So I'm like, well, why don't you go take his class then? No. So thank you guys for coming in. Okay. All right. So CPA, game changer. I've said this in the past. It looks a lot dumber in print than it sounds in words. I'm just going to share quickly a little bit about my background. I've been teaching at San Francisco State for about 4 years now. I have been teaching the CPA exam for about 26 years now. No, 23 years, helping people pass the exam, tutoring them on the exam, that sort of thing. I taught at Golden Gate University for a while as well. Now, I was doing that while I was working for the federal government, so I kind of had a double-barrel career track going. I retired from the government about 26 years. I worked there 26 years and retired about 4 years ago. So I was there for 26 years, and I did get my license, my CPA, through the experience I had with an agency called the Government Accountability Office. There was a lot of opportunity to get on really good assignments those years that I was with the GAO, and it wasn't until after I got the CPA that somehow I seemed to be sought after, to get on the really good assignments that got me promoted, got me additional opportunities, etc. Okay? I tell my Accounting 100 students sometimes when they don't want to learn journal entries, I say, hey, I love accounting. I was cleaning toilets before accounting came and found me. Okay? So getting the license, getting the CPA is something, game changer, whatever, that could be beneficial to you, will almost certainly be beneficial to you in your career. Okay, so I'm sort of preaching to the choir there, but I figured I'd throw that out. I wanted to put this here in case you forgot. Okay, so today is election day, so if you haven't gone and voted, watch the room clear out, right? If you haven't gone and voted yet, please make sure you do that, okay, today. All right. Okay. Employment opportunities, sort of what I've talked about, definitely arising with the CPA license, greater demand, that sort of thing. 75% of AI CPA members will be eligible for retirement in 2020. That's just a sort of a measure, one measure of the need, the demand for CPAs. What I can tell you, having worked for the federal government for all those years, and so I sort of follow that on LinkedIn and stuff, I saw a study recently that was done that said only 30% of the people working for the government are under the age of 30 or something like that. I mean, just a very small number under the age of 30, and then there was something like some 75% or something will be retiring in the next, 3 or 4 years. I'm at the end of the baby boom, guys. I was in one of the later baby additions of the baby boom, and I'm already retired. Okay, so lot of opportunity out there in government, that sort of thing, and the license does make a difference in that industry. The other thing that I would say, big need for people with IT skills. The FBI is looking for people with IT skills. Federal agencies are looking for individuals that have IT skills as well. So you combine those two, IT skills, CPA, working for the government, you can have a pretty good little gig someday. Okay, so just a few thoughts on career paths. All right, so that's all I'm going to say about that. Talking about the requirements for getting your license in the state of California. California Board of Accountancy, CBA, and I took the cover of their handbook and put it here. So most of the information that I'm going to be talking about is relevant to California, and it comes pretty much from this handbook. Okay, now maybe I should be a little more modest, but I'm not going to be. You're probably not going to run into anyone who knows more about this book than I do, okay? Because I'm the nerd that reads the book and then reads it again and reads it one more time just to, on Saturday night when I don't have anything else to do, okay? So, I would say come see me. I'm going to put up my contact information in my office hour, etc. if you want to talk to me about anything that we're going to go through here. But it is out there, and it is something that you can look at. Now, I have a couple of issues with the handbook, in that I'm such a nerd that I took the handbook and compared it to the actual regulations. And there's some things that aren't the same in the handbook than they are in the regulations. But that's all right. I won't audit them. Okay, but I pointed that out to them, and they were like, huh, what? Do you want to talk to my boss? I'm like, never mind. Okay, so just leave it alone. I call the CBA probably a couple, 3 times a week with questions and stuff, and sometimes I'll call them like 2 or 3 times in one day. So by the third call, I start disguising my voice. No, I'm not the person that called a minute ago. This is a different person. So if you need help with any of this, just let me know, okay? All right, but that's where the information comes from. Accounting Resource Center. You can see my 2 classes in iLearn right here. Guys, this is not going to allow you to click on my class and, update your grade in my class or anything like that. This is not what yours would look like. It would have your classes, right? And then down here, you see the Accounting Major Resource Center. So as Accounting Major, you can click in there. There are a variety of documents that are useful. I'm going to put this PowerPoint in there. I'm going to put this recording. Amy's going to put the recording in there. We'll put the link in there and get that all set up. I'll put it out on YouTube, but we'll put the link in in I Learn. So if you go out to YouTube and you see something that's offensive next to the presentation, that's not me, that's you. Okay, that's YouTube figuring out what you're interested in and putting something next to that. Okay, but that is something that we'll make available, and you can hear all these wonderful jokes. Again, I'm sure you'll play them all day and all night for your friends, right? Okay, all right, so that's where that is. Okay, now when we talk about the 3 E's, okay, it's education, exam, and experience. Okay, we're going to be talking about the education requirements primarily. I'm going to talk a little bit, if we have time, about the exam, or if you're curious about the nature of the exam, etc. We'll get into that a little bit. Let me talk about experience right now, and I don't have a slide for experience because I'm just going to tell you, you have to work for 1 year under the supervision of a CPA in order to get the license. That's the experience component. Got to work 1 year under the supervision of a CPA. Now, that supervision of a CPA can come working for a CPA firm like BPM. It could be obtained working for the government. That's how I got my experience. It can come working for a corporation. It can come working in a company. Say I have some students of my CPA students have gone on to work, thinking off the top of my head of a couple that worked in property management companies. As long as you're using accounting data in your job working under the supervision of a CPA for 1 year, that experience will count for your license. Okay? Yes? Internship counts. The board does not care whether you are fully employed with the employer in order to get that experience. However, the CPA is the one that has to sign off on your experience. So some CPAs will say, well, I'm not going to sign off on internship experience because, and sometimes they don't know what they're talking about, and they'll say because the board won't accept it. The board will accept it. Okay, they will accept internship, but the individual CPA is the one who signs off on your license. You need 2 signatures. You need one of a CPA, and it can be a CPA of any board in the country. It does not have to be a California CPA. In fact, it does not even have to be a U.S. CPA. It can be a China CPA, as long as they're in good standing with whoever the authoritative body is. Their state board in China, I think China CPAs are lined up under the Ministry of Finance. Whatever the different organizations are that issue the license, as long as they're in good standing. So if you got your experience under a Florida CPA, the California CPA board, the State Board of Accountancy, would require a letter that would come from that state board saying that that individual is in good standing, because they don't want to get in the business of looking up everybody's license. If it's a California CPA, you don't need that letter. Okay, but you have to have the 1 year of experience, 2 signatures, run from a CPA. The second signature does not have to be from a CPA. It has to be from a higher level or person in the organization. The only time you get away with only having 1 signature if you're working for a sole proprietorship, in which there is not somebody else that would sign. Okay, but yes, internship experience counts. Yes, sir. Audit hours are not required if you go for the general license. Okay, there's 2 types of licenses you can get. You can get a general license, in which as long as you're working with accounting data, you can get the CPA, but you can't attest to financial statements, which is the second level license that you could get, which is an attest license. Okay, so if somebody's working, say, in the tax area of a CPA firm, not doing audit, you wouldn't get attest experiences. Okay, so the state requires that you have 500 hours of a test experience. What's a test experience? Some of you that are taking the auditing class, confirming accounts receivable, searching for unrecorded liabilities, looking at revenue recognition, looking to see that the company has met all the disclosure requirements of U.S. GAAP. Those are considered a test experience. And of the 2,080 hours that constitutes 1 year of experience, because when they say 1 year of experience, you can't, go into the CPA firm, touch the door, there I was here, and do it all, week for a year. You have to have actually accrued 2,080 hours of work. That's like a 40-hour work week. And by the way, most of you who go into the CPA industry will put more than a 2,080-hour work year, 40-hour work week. Okay, but 2,080. So they're saying Charles, that about a quarter of the entire year has to be on attest experiences in order to get the attest license. Now, what does the attest license do for you? With the attest license, you can sign off on the financial statements. You can put Elise Weber CPA on, if you had the attest license, on your on the audit report, and that would be accepted, that you could do that. If you're a general CPA, don't you dare sign off on financial statements. That will be reason for revocation of your license and probably disciplinary action, strong disciplinary action. So if you ever want to see stuff that people did wrong, get the CPA bulletin from the CPA website and look. It's like a car wreck. You turn directly back to that and you read about all the things that people did that got their license taken from them and suspended and that sort of thing. So with the general license, you cannot attest. But when you go to holiday dinner coming up and you're sitting there and your in-laws say, "Are you a CPA?" You just say yes, and they don't know the difference, because you can still put CPA, etc. on your card. You just can't sign off on the financial statements. Thank you. That's a good question. You're going to say something else? Right. That's the general license. That's right. Right. They don't call it path 2 anymore, but it's the attest. Yeah, the attest path is where you would go. Now, what's good is if somebody had, say, a general license, and let's say they wanted to go ahead and upgrade to the attest license later, that's fine. All you have to do is prove that you have the 500 hours of audit experience at that point in time, and they'll, I guess I should call it, upgrade you to a test license, because there's some tax people that are sitting there saying, "I don't think the attest license is an upgrade because I don't need a test because I'm a tax person and I have the general license." And so you could be working for a CPA firm, not doing a test work, spending all your time in the attest area, I mean in the, the tax area, and still, still qualify for the general license. Okay? Pretty good. Spent about 15 minutes talking about something I said I wasn't going to talk about. See, that's what my classes are like. Okay, all of a sudden, I'm off on some tangent and I can't get off of it. So, any question on that? Okay, good. So, everybody has in front of them this form right now. Okay, you should have this form. Yes, I do. Everybody get one? Did everybody get one of these? Thanks, Nick. Anybody else? Did you get some pizza? I saw you looking at the pizza. Help yourself. There's some plates right there. Anybody else? Okay, good. Now, I have this form here on this slide, but I'm going to go ahead and actually open up the PDF of this because I'm going to mark it up. Okay? And so you may want to take some notes along with me as I go through this. If any of you have ever been to my office to ask me what the requirements are. You've seen this form. I thought I had the thing opened on it. Is it on the separate tab? Oh, there it is. Thank you. Thank you. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark this thing up. And I'm going to mark it up just the way I would if you come to my class. Okay. Now, if you come to my office hour to look at this stuff, I do every single person exactly the same. When you come to my office and I'm going to help you with this, you have entered Judge Judy's court. And Judge Judy says, "Don't ask me anything I didn't ask you that." Okay, so it's kind of like that. Okay, and I just assume that you don't fully understand everything that that are part of the requirements. And so I want to make sure we're all on the same page before we start to play jazz and go off and talk about different specific things for your case. Okay, so if you feel you know this, okay, already, that's okay. But please bear with me. Okay, so to sit for CPA exam, to sit for CPA exam, you have to have your bachelor's and 120 semester units of education. To sit for CPA exam, guys, my writing has never been good. They used to send notes home when I was a kid saying, John can't stay in the lines. Okay? So, to sit for CPA exam, you have to have bachelor's degree, so that's why I'm going to read it back to you, and 120 semester units. That's to sit for the exam. Now, when you go to sit for the exam, those 120 semester units, 24 are to be accounting units, 24 are to be business units. Okay, 120 total, 24 have to be accounting, 24 have to be business. That's all you need to sit for the exam. Okay, now when we talk about accounting classes, we're talking about accounting classes. Okay, sometimes people say, well, finance can't? No, that's not accounting. It's accounting. It either has to have counting in the what? Department, like here at San Francisco State, accounting 100, accounting 101, accounting 504, whatever. Or it can be in, say, the business department. For example, at San Jose State, they'll say business 1-128, for example, is governmental accounting at San Jose State. It says business, but because the what? Title of the course is accounting, they'll accept it. So it either has to be from the accounting department or have the words in it what? Accounting in there. Okay? Those are accounting classes. Any question on that? Okay. Okay, good. Then you come over and we look at the business requirements. Was there a question on that? Okay. We come over and we look at the business. Okay. Classes with the word business in them count as business. Statistics counts as business. Mathematics counts as business. Okay. So all of these classes here count as business classes, and you have to have 24 accounting, 24 business, your bachelor's completed, 120 semester units of total education, right? Okay. Now most of you, all of you, when you complete your business administration degree, concentration in accounting from San Francisco State, will have met the requirements to sit, right? Because you get, with the degree, if you look at the way the classes are structured, you've got to take 100, 101, 301, 302, 305. You have to take those classes. Then you have to take what? 4 electives, 4 accounting electives. So that's what? 9 classes at 3 units each. That's 27 units. So you'll have the requirements to sit and you'll have your bachelor's degree, right? So you will be able to sit for the exam once you have your bachelor's degree, etc. Okay? With the 24 business, 24 accounting. Most students who come to me are overflowing with business units. Okay? They've got plenty of business units. It's the accounting that we have to work on a little bit more. Any question on that? Okay? Now, you come down and I'm going to put for license, you'll need 30 more units. When you go for your license, by the time you're acquiring your license, you must have then a total of what? 30 more plus what? Plus the 120, thus the so-called 150 semester unit requirement. When they call it a 150 unit requirement, a lot of students get confused and say, "Oh, that means I need 150 for license to sit for the exam." Excuse me, to sit for the exam. No, you need 150 for what? Licensure. To sit for the exam, you only need the what? The 120, 24 accounting, 24 business. Okay. Any question on that? Because that's something that I hear a lot from my students when they come to see me. They say, well, I need 150 to sit for the exam. And I say, no, you don't. This is what you need to sit for the exam. 24 with the 120, right? And your bachelor's degree. Okay? Now, when they talk about the additional 30 units, they say that means 20 more accounting units above and beyond the 24. And what? Just scrolling down a little bit to find the bottom of this form, and 10 more units of ethics. So we're talking those additional 30 units, 20 being accounting, and what? 10 being ethics. Now, before you panic, I hear the thoughts going off in the mind right now. I'm not going to become a CPA because I'm not taking 44 accounting. I've already taken 27. You mean I got to take another 20 units on top of that? You're going to kill me. Okay? No, they're not going to kill you. They tell you that the additional 20 accounting, only 6 have to be actual accounting classes. The remaining 14 can be business classes. Okay? So when you add it all up, we're actually talking about what? About you having to have 30 accounting units and what? And 38 business. Okay, so any units you don't use to sit for the exam will waterfall down and help you meet the additional requirements for license, won't they? Okay, so I'm going to show you the graphic of the day here. I got to put this up right now because I'm so proud of this graphic that I came up with. So I'm just going to show it to you right now, which is right here. Okay, so you've got what? You've got these 24 accounting. Okay, I guess I'm a frustrated artist. 24, is that Nick's going, is that art? 24 accounting, 24 business, right? Once you fill the buckets up there, the 24 accounting, 24 business, any additional units will do what? Will overflow, flow down, waterfall down into what you need for the what? Additional 6 accounting and 14 business. 24, 24 up there. These little drop guys are going to go fill these other buckets down here, right? Okay? That's the way that part of it is working. You can't count them twice. You cannot count them twice in each category, right? They got to waterfall down. Question? Okay. Okay, good. So let me go back to my tip sheet here. Okay, so that's our requirements of the classes: 14 business, 6 additional accounting. So it's a total now of what? 30 accounting. Now you need to think about that in terms of how it processes for your degree, and that what? I saw Albert over here a minute ago. Did he leave? Okay, for your what? For your degree, you need the classes that we talked about, the 9 classes, the 27 units, okay? That 27 units, then you'd have to take one additional class beyond the degree, wouldn't you, to get up to 30? Assuming a 3-unit class here at San Francisco State. Okay, so that's one more class than the minimum you'd have to take to get to degree. So you're just going to have one more class, right? Be careful, though. Think carefully. Weigh the decision carefully about how you make up your 4 accounting electives. If you use Business 320 as one of your accounting electives, then I can't count that in the accounting column for you when you're thinking about CPA. So I'd have to tell you, not only do you have to take one more class, you have to then take what? 2 more classes. Okay? Now, the beauty, though, of business law is we can count it in the ethics column. So let's talk about the ethics column. 10 units of ethics you need, and 7 of the 10 units can be comprised of classes having these words down here. Okay? And if you take a look, notice we have legal environment of business. I think Business 320 is called legal aspects of business. And there was a time where people would say, well, it doesn't say aspects, it says environment. That's nonsense, okay? As long as it's getting close to the title, the board is going to be fine with that. Okay, so you can count Business 320 of an ethics class. If you've already taken it, don't panic. At least we can get some mileage out of it down here, right? My recommendation would be that you make up your 4 accounting electives of actual accounting classes so that you only have to take one more accounting class. Most of the CPA review courses can teach you the business law that you need, and we can get your units down here for ethics with a variety of combinations. For example, if you look at this, management of organization, organizational behavior, that's business management 405, isn't it? That's Management 405. So I'll put Management 405 down in the ethics column for you immediately. Business 682 that you must take, even though you don't see the words of that title of that class, whatever is seminar and something or another, and you don't see those words there. I called the state and I read them the description of Business 682. And then, because they first told me no, but I'm kind of a hard guy being an auditor for 26 years to say no to when I think I know the answer. So I'm like, well, it says this, and wouldn't that be the same as why? Huh? Okay, we're not going to get rid of this guy. One moment, sir. So I hear them clicking, and they go, oh, that class has been accepted as an ethics class. So I know Business 682 has been accepted as an ethics class, okay, so you can count it down there. Now, I called back a few years later and tried that same trick with another class that somebody was asking me about, and they wouldn't tell me. I'm like, well, you have a database sitting there. Why can't you tell me? Sorry, we don't give that information out over the phone. And I'm like, okay, well, this is nonsense. I called Cal CPA, which is the CPA Society, and said, why are they not putting this information out on their website so anyone can go and click? That's why God made the internet, for us to be able to do that kind of stuff. And they said, well, John, you're the only one that seems to have that concern. Okay, so I'm like, I talk to 100 people a week that have that concern. But anyway, I know the Business 682, I can count it down there. Okay, and so there's classes that we can put together. Now, you could also, let's say you didn't take Business 320. Let's say you got all 4 of your accounting units, all of your 4 of your accounting electives with accounting classes, so that you have what? You have 27, and you only have to take the 1 more class. But now you're saying, well, John, I need some more ethics units now. I could have counted Business 320 down there. Well, I think it might be an easier class to take philosophy, introduction to philosophy. So I tell you, hey, go take the philosophy class and figure out why we're all here or something. I don't know, but just go ahead and sit there and take that class and get the 3 units that way, right? But be careful, because you might sit there and say, well, yeah, I'm going to take all, I always want to say psychology, all philosophy classes. Then I'll get my whole 10 units with a bunch of easy classes. Stop. They limit us to what? 3 units, okay? So I can get 7 units with a combination of classes that have these words, etc. down here. That's 7. It says you need 10, doesn't it? Okay? Everybody must have a 3-unit semester class of accountants' professional responsibilities. You have to have that class. It is a very specific class. It's not just business ethics, it's accounting ethics. For example, if you have a client and the client hasn't paid you, can you keep their accounting records until they pay you? They've given you their accounting records. You've been doing work. They haven't paid you. You have their accounting records hostage. You say, your accounting records are here right now. Do you want to talk to them? Okay, so what happens? You've got the accounting records. Can you do that? Can you say, either pay me or your accounting records are going into the shredder? Can you do that? That is a violation of not only the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants Code of Professional Ethics, it is also a violation of California regulation. CPAs are regulated under the Accountancy Act. Under the regulations that implement the Accountancy Act, you would be subject to, we're going to read about you in the accounting bulletin if you do that. They're going to suspend your license, they're going to revoke your license, etc. Okay? You have to have a class that talks about that kind of stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of ethics classes. We can get into mega ethics. Is it okay to murder, to kill? You say no, but what if the other person's trying to kill you? What if we're in war? We kill all the time, don't we? So there's those kind of big questions that be covered in an ethics class. That's not good enough. It's got to be a class that is what? Focusing in on the nature of things that I just talked about, accounting industry ethics. Now, we do not currently have that class at the undergraduate level at San Francisco State. So many of my students take that class at Foothill College, College of San Mateo, UC Berkeley Extension, City College. What'd you say, Nick? Yeah, City College. Okay, so there are community colleges out there where you can pick that class up. You can't get it here. Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah. So what if the class at another school is offered, say, for 5 units, and the 5 units would already like fill up that requirement, right?
5 units, you can count it down here to 3, and then you could take the remaining 2 units and count it as an accounting class if you want. Remember those drops? Those drops they're not whole classes. So I could have a class that gets me up to the 24, and let's say let's say then I have another class, I have another 3-unit class. Let's say I'm up to 23. Okay, I can use 1 unit up there for the 24th unit, and then bring the remaining 2 units down to help me meet the 6. Okay. By the way, and I'll continue to answer your question in a minute, but I want to get this out before I forget. I have a lot of students who come in and say, so the 6 additional units have to be graduate level classes, right? Or they have to be 500 level classes, right? Or they have to be my additional accounting units. And I hear all kinds of, it should have been fiction writing. If they were taking the fiction class, that would be beautiful. Okay? What's happening? They can be anything. I can put them anywhere. I can put them up in the 24. I can bring the extra units down to the 6. It doesn't have to be any certain level of class. Okay. So in this case, if I took a 5-unit accounting industry ethics and it's accounting class, I could take those 2 extra units and pop them up into the need for either the 24 or the 6 accounting, the 30 accounting. Okay. Now be careful. When it says 5 units, if it's a 5-unit quarter class, we're talking about what? 3 semester units. So you take the 5 times 2/3. To convert your quarter units into semester units, you have to multiply the quarter units by 2/3 to turn into semester. So a 5-unit quarter class turns into 3.33333333 semester units, and sometimes I have students that'll bring me their transcript from a community college that was a quarter school, and they see me go, because now we have to have, okay, 2.67 plus 2.33 plus 1.33 plus 33333, what is that? Okay, so that gets a little bit more complicated, but you can convert them that way. Yeah. Question about any of this on the tip sheet? Nothing on the tip sheet?
So say you're finished with all your 30 accounting units and everything. If you go to a CC and you're still under the 150 after you graduate, could you take the 5-unit accounting semester course at this community college here?
Nick's the man. Thank you for asking that question, because I almost forgot that. Okay. What we've specified here is what? 78 units, haven't we? 24 plus the 30 is 78. But you need a total of 150 units, don't you? Okay. So the additional 72 units can be in anything. You could take 72 PE classes, 1 unit each. And that would bring you up to the 150, and they would be fine like that. Now, they won't give you a degree if you take 72 PE classes. So your other classes that are compiling your degree will be used to bring you up to the 150. But let's say you do all that, you finish your degree and everything. You decided you wanted to be an accountant when you were 2. So you finally get to college and you do everything you have to do to become an accountant. Well, you'd finish with about 120 semester units, of which 78 of those would be the requirements that we're talking about here, right? Or at least to 24, right? Even if you get 30 more units, even if you got these 30 more units like that, that would bring you up to the 150. But usually students have different classes that fit into the different areas. They cover the 78, but they're still only having 120, 130 units or something. Well, now you're 20 short, right? And at that point, I usually start telling my students that they should think strongly about a master's degree in accounting. Just go for a master's, because if you're going to be taking additional 20 units of study, it's stupid to take 20 units of baking. or 20 units of dancing or weightlifting or hairstyling. Okay, think of how the time I would have wasted taking hairstyle classes. Okay, so you don't want to sit there. You want to take classes that are going to potentially add to your future of getting a master's degree or something like that. Okay, now what they do, and most of my accounting majors don't have to use this, they do tell you that if you complete a master's of accounting, you are automatically deemed to have met this additional 20 accounting requirement. Now, the reason they do that is there are people that were crazy enough to study something other than accounting. I had a guy the other day that he was, I forget what his major was, and he's got a bachelor's degree and he's going for the master's now in accounting. And he was asking me how this provision works, and I'm like, well, that means that any accounting classes you take in your master's of accountancy get to be counted up here to sit, and you're automatically deemed to meet the additional 20 accounting. Now, what those students often have a problem with is meeting the 24 business, because if they studied some nonsense, something interesting like philosophy before they decided to go into accounting, then we start to have trouble getting them enough business units, right? Because they still need the 24 business. And of course, everyone's got to deal with this ethics. So that's a great question. Thank you. Yes, sir. Okay. Yes. None of these units have to be taken at the university level. Of course, you need a bachelor's, so most community colleges, although if Bernie Sanders gets elected, I think community colleges will start giving bachelor's degrees, but that's a whole nother thing. Stop, John, stop. Okay, so most community colleges don't offer a bachelor's, but you could take all of the classes at the community college level as far as the state's concerned, as long as the school is accredited. So if you went to Bob's College, that won't count. But if you went to the city college, or you went to Chabot College in Hayward, anyone here from Hayward? Okay, you went to Chabot College in Hayward or something like that, then you can count those community college classes, yes. Okay. Well, I know when you said, so let's say I have a friend and he had 128 units. I was like, okay, maybe I know who you're talking about. So yes, your community college classes would count towards the yeah, as long as the school's accredited. I did have a student who came and had credits from a school, and she earned the credits before the college was accredited. So I said, okay, that's when I got to call the state on. I don't know. And the state informed me that, and I had to give her the bad news, that they won't count the units that you earned before the school was accredited. So it has to be accredited at the time that you earn the units. But as long as it's accredited, they'll give you the credit. They'll accept those units. The state doesn't care. Okay. Now, when you apply, you have to have your transcript sent directly from SF State and any community college. If you went to 3 community colleges, you got to have all 3 of them send your transcripts directly to the state, and then the state is going to sit here with their tip sheet and see that you have met the requirements by checking off the classes. Okay. Now, the reason I say they're going to sit here with the tip sheet, they probably have some more sophisticated form that they go through. The reason I'm saying the tip sheet is this. The tip sheet doesn't match the legislation. Because I went back and I looked at the legislation, and the legislation says that you can only count 1 unit of auditing towards the ethics requirement. Here they just say auditing, don't they? They used to have a note, and if you ever see that note at the bottom of a tip sheet, throw it away. It's an old tip sheet. They used to have a note down there at the bottom that said only 1 unit of a class dedicated entirely to financial auditing will be counted in the ethics column. The state ignores that rule, and they just go ahead and they count all 3. It ignores that law, and they just sit there and they count what? All 3 of the units down here? They go by their tip sheet. So I called them and I said, you should fix the law because it's not matching the tip sheet and what you actually do. And they're like, huh? Do you want to talk to my supervisor? And I'm like, no, I'm just telling you, never mind. I'm not going to audit you guys today, okay? So the legislation doesn't match what the law says. So you can count all three down here. But they'll go by this to see that you have the requirements. Okay? Elise?
I have one thing to add to
Yeah.
this. I know that there were some people when I was at SF State that were trying to, they didn't want to go for the master's. They wanted to get all their 150 done while at SF State. And just so you know, SF State will force you to graduate if you've taken all of their requirements. So if you
Right.
think you're just going to stay here and like keep paying tuition and finish out your additional units, they will force you to graduate if you've met their requirements. Even if you haven't met your CPA licensure requirements, they'll force you to graduate. So
Yeah, that's a very important point. So what students get skilled at is not graduating, right? Don't leave that last accounting class that'll cause you to graduate and accumulate additional units so you get up to the 150. And then in that last semester when the scale says 150, then you take that last class that caused you to graduate, or Business 682 or whatever it is, right? Yeah, so you've got to, use some skill and not graduating. Okay? So when you go home tonight and your, significant other, your parents, whatever, said, what did you learn in college today? How not to graduate. Okay? All right. Your parents will be real happy with that. Okay? So, yeah, that's a very important point, because I do have students that come to me too late in the process and they're like, I'm graduating this semester. Okay, so then it's too late, right? So, yeah, you want to think ahead on that. Thank you, Elise. That's excellent. Anything else?
I came from transferred, so I took accounting 100 before. I was told that I could take accounting 100 here.
Okay.
My 10th accounting class.
Okay. Yes, as long as you don't take it at the same institution. So you can't go to Chabot College, where people who graduate from Chabot are a little more challenged, right? Okay. I'm just kidding. If you came from Chabot, I went to Chabot, so I can make fun of it. Okay. That's where I just fell in love with accounting, at Chabot College. Okay. So what happens? You can't go to Chabot College and blow up the curve and take the introductory class 52 times, okay? You can take it once at Chabot. You could take it once at Ohlone College. You could take it another time at City College here at San Francisco State. Now, I got to tell you something, okay? Okay, cut. Okay. Look, City College has figured something out. They now give you, it used to be a 4-unit class, right? Now they give you 5 units for introductory to financial, 5 units for introduction to managerial. I wonder why they made it a 5-unit class. Well, let's think about this. You're getting what? You're getting 2 more units per class than you would if you took it at San Francisco State. And if you go through the San Francisco State program perfectly, how many units are you short? 3. So by doing that, they're getting you up to the 30 units, aren't they? If you took it at community college, City College, and then you continued on with the program over here, you'd have 31 when you were done, right? And I guess they had to have that extra unit because they didn't want to make it a 4.5-unit class. So they made it a 5-unit class. That's how you end up with that extra unit. But I didn't say that. This is not John speaking.
So even though if you have all your accounting units set, if I did that that course for 5 units, I could get those 5 units to add to my.
Yes. Just as long as you didn't take the class before. If you took, say, I think you had like a really good teacher for 101, didn't you? Okay, if you take 100, okay, and 101 here, and then you want to pick up a easy 10 units towards the 30 accounting units, then you could do that. But you wouldn't need to do that, Nick, because you're talking about getting 150.
Yeah,
So don't take accounting classes. I mean, if you're just trying to get yourself up to the 150, you should be taking appreciation of movies or something, But yeah, you could take an accounting class if you were needing accounting units, and those would count as 10. Okay. All right. Any other questions, guys? All right. Don't worry. We don't have that many more slides to go, but there's a couple more things I wanted to show you. But I think we really have hit the high points already here. Don't clear out, but let's just go ahead. I always know that the presentation is ending when I start hearing zippers. I start hearing people go zip, 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 zip. Oh, they're done with my presentation. Okay, but that's the zippers on your bags zipping and closing. Okay, but let's go ahead and let's take a look at this, which now this slide is pretty much useless. Okay, but I'm going to show it to you anyway, which is what? Well, it's not useless because that's going to transition me into Washington a little bit, okay? But what? California, the 120, the bachelor's, 24, 24, the additional units, the 20, 6 accounting, 14 business, the 10 ethics, right? Okay, total 150, okay? Now, there's something that I have coined the Washington option. Okay, sounds like something, from the Revolutionary War. Well, Washington could have done this, but he did that and it changed America, okay? Washington option, okay, is you could take the exam through the state of Washington. Now, to qualify to take the exam through the state of Washington, you need 150 units to sit for the exam. To sit for the exam, you need 150, okay? And 24 of those have to be accounting, 24 have to be business. The units that get you up to the 150, they don't have a requirement of 20 accounting, 10 ethics. They don't have that requirement. They could all be PE classes, whatever, right? Okay? And so the total is 150 to sit. Now, you look at that and you say, but I don't want a Washington license, okay? You take the exam through Washington. You don't even have to go to Washington. You take the exam right here in California. You register for the exam through Washington, and under the Washington option, you can take the exam 6 months early, 6 months before you meet the requirements. Okay, now why is this important? In California, you can't sit for the exam until you finish your bachelor's, right? So let's say you finish your bachelor's in May, say May of 2019. You finish your bachelor's. It's going to take San Francisco State probably, if you're mean and you call them,
They did mine within like
3 weeks? Okay.
like,
You were mean. Okay. All right, so you stayed on them, but it took them about a month, let's say, right? So if you graduate in May, your degree isn't getting stamped until June, right? Okay. Then you have your transcript sent, and you apply, and it takes California about, we'll be generous, we'll say a month to process your application, could be longer. So now your application is being processed what? In July, best case scenario, right? Okay. If it goes into August, you're going to have a problem because you can't sit for the exam after the first 10 days of the last month of each quarter. So you can sit through the 10th of March, through the 10th of June, through the 10th of September, through the 10th of December. Okay? So there's a chance that if things get tied up a little bit, that you're not able to take your exam, your first exam, until October. This is a problem, isn't it? Because maybe you're starting with the firm in October. So I complained to the state board about this, and I kept complaining, and this is stupid, and why are you doing this, and you're hurting California CPAs. People in Washington can sit earlier. And they're like, well, there's a provision in the handbook in which you can have your scores transferred from another state as long as you didn't sit for the exam before you met California requirements. So this makes Washington an option in that what? You go ahead, you register through Washington, they approve you 6 months in advance, right? You schedule your exams, but you carefully schedule them so you don't schedule them before what? Before May of 2019 in our example. And now you're able to do what? Now you're able to sit for the exams during the summer, aren't you? Before you start you could sit in June, you could sit in July, you could sit in August. You might knock out 3 of the exams, right? So I'm like, okay, this is great. This is what we're going to do. First thing I did was show me where it says so in the handbook. Don't just tell me. So they showed me where it said so in the handbook. Thank you. Regulation, legislation, same language. Thank you. So I did my internal control testing for you auditors. but I needed to do some substantive testing. So I convinced Elise and her significant other, Jake. What's Jake's last name? Jake Maxwell. You had the pleasure. Okay, you got to meet this guy. We're going to put his phone number up later, right? Okay. So what happens? They went ahead and they did that. They went through that whole process, and you notice at the very beginning it said Elise Weber CPA, and Jake just got his. Okay, so now I know it works. Okay, thank you for going through that. Okay, so what I want to do at this point, with no further, I'll go through this a little bit later since I have set this up, and my segue would be all screwed up if I tried to talk about something else. I'll come back. But you see, California, this is not the electoral map, by the way. Geez, what's it, a new party? I haven't heard of the yellows and the blues. Okay, so the light blues. So this is California. Okay, and California is yellow here because you have to apply directly through California when you apply for the exam. Washington, with the Washington option, you apply not directly through Washington, you apply through NASBA, okay, the National Association of State Board of Accountancy, okay? So before I say anything else wrong, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the person that actually did this, okay? So I have up here the slides that you did, but I wanted to put up there that form. Oh, I know what it was, where the form is. So where'd you go? Okay, so take that. That's your slide starting right there. But before you go on those, I'm going to go ahead and put this form up for you because we talked about having that form, right? Okay, so if you want to mark it up and stuff, you can go for it. Give me 2 seconds. You wanted this form, right? Yeah. Okay, so if there's anything you want the stylus, or you're good?
I think I'm okay. I'm just
Okay.
gonna go to the slide and then I'll circle.
Okay, okay. From current slide, yeah. There you go.
So I'm really excited to be here to talk about this because I do feel like Jake and I were kind of like the guinea pigs to see if it all would work out. So we were all like fingers crossed. Hopefully this all does, like pan out and the exams count and everything. So I went to SF State. I graduated in May of 2016. And so I put together just a couple slides up here for you guys to explain what we did and kind of any tips that we kind of learned along the way. So I just kind of like threw some bullet points up here. The first thing is you're going to submit your application to Washington or NASBA if you're within the 180 days of meeting the Washington board requirements that John had up here earlier. And like I kind of want to reiterate what he was saying about Washington being a NASBA state versus California has its own board of accountancy. The reason that it takes so much longer to go through California, and you can ask anyone that's already gone through this process, is because California, if you're going through a board of accountancy, they're now acting as a middleman between, so then there's you, and you're going to California, and they take their sweet time, and then you have NASBA. So they're kind of like filtering your way through to NASBA. Whereas Washington, they have a nice online portal, and you can kind of track to see how things are, looking and your progress and everything. The application you fill out online, and you can pay everything on with credit cards. I know that sounds kind of silly, but California, just so you know, they only accept checks. And it is such a longer process from what I've heard from my friends that went through California. So you submit your application. I recommend doing this while you're still in school. I did mine maybe a month before I graduated SF State. A bunch of us kind of like, I remember sitting in the library, we were all just applying, sending it through. We were all kind of figuring it out along with Professor Lord. And after we submitted our application, there's this other form
called the Washington Certificate of Enrollment Form. And what that form is, it's basically saying, like, yes, I'm applying to sit for my exams through the state of Washington, but here are the classes that I'm currently taking that I haven't yet passed because they're in progress. So you basically have to fill out this form, which, how do I,
We're going to get out a slideshow.
oh, do I scroll
So
down
hit
here?
those little dots on the bottom here. I'll help you. No, it's on.
Oh.
Sorry. So if you could just go ahead and just get out a slideshow. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I just
no,
want to
you're fine.
come over so you can see it. If you've been in my class, you've seen me struggle with my computer before.
It's okay, I'm not like the most tech savvy person. Okay. Yep, so I think that's here. Okay, so this is what the form looks like. I think this is available through the NASBA website. If I'm not correct, let me know.
I got that from the Washington website, so you could also go there.
Okay. Yeah, so you download this form, you fill everything out, and what I did, and I remember when I filled out this form when I was at SF State, is and I don't know if you need to do this, but I was really like just trying to be proactive about it. I put a Post-it note, and I was like, when you mail this, because you fill it out and you bring it to the registrar office here at SF State, and they basically sign off like, yes, Elise is taking these classes right now, they're in progress. But I wrote a Post-it note and I said, please email me and confirm that you mailed this out so that I know. And they do. They'll email, they'll send you an email like, yes, I mailed this out. And that was really helpful for me. And then let's jump back here. So you send that out, and then you'll get, I think it was really quick when I got a response from NASBA saying that they had reviewed and accepted my application. I want to say it was like maybe 3 weeks. It was pretty quick. And I remember I had graduated at this point, not officially, like transcript-wise, but I had already, school was over. I officially was able to, the application was approved, and then they send you a notice like, yes, you're approved, you can now pay for exams. Now, this is kind of a tricky part because unless you're going to take a summer off, like I didn't work that summer. So if you have the ability to not work and you're like, I'm going to just take exams and that's all I'm going to do this summer. And that can be a tough decision because some people graduate and they want to travel the world, and that's awesome. But so then you're going to be, a little nerdy and sitting in the library all summer. But I do recommend doing that because basically when you pay for your exams, I remember there was a fee that you had to pay every time that you bought an exam. There was some sort of application. I forget what the name of the fee is, but I remember at first I was scared, so I only bought 2 exams. And I was like, oh no, you know what, I want to just take all 4. So then I went and I paid another fee and the other 2 exams, and I was committed to taking 4 exams, and I think you have 6 months after they issue your NTS, which is your notice to schedule. You have 6 months to actually sit for that exam, or else you have to pay for it again. So when you do pay for your exams, be cognizant, is this reasonable? Am I working? What's on my plate right now? Am I going to be able to take all these exams in that period of time?
At least if I could chime in, it's kind of like buying tickets to a concert, and then you can't go on the day of the concert, okay? But unlike a concert where you just walk in, you have to be prepared to take the exam on that day, right? If you don't take it within that 6-month period, then you forfeit that fee for that exam, and you have to pay for it again. And it can be what, like $400?
Yeah, it ends up being pretty pricey to buy the exams. What I ended up doing is I paid 2 exams at a time, which I wish I had done all 4. And then I ended up, because I second-guessed myself when I was taking my exams, you can pay fees to postpone your exams, and those get expensive too, so I don't recommend doing that. But if you feel like you're unprepared and you just select your date that you want to take an exam, you can pay whatever fee depending on when you decide to postpone it to push your exam back a few days, a week, whatever you need that you feel like you're going to be able to pass your exam. This is super important. You can't I don't recommend you sit for an exam before SF State stamps your transcript as graduated. I know he mentioned this earlier, because if SF State, even though you walk the stage, you're done, you passed all your exams, you know you're graduated, but if SF State doesn't go in and stamp your transcript as graduated on this date, and you sit for an exam, they're not going to count it. And you pass, that is just like the worst thing.
SF State stamped your degree, say July 1st, and you thought that they were stamping it for May. So you sit for an exam in May, and you pass that exam. California, will not accept that score because you sat before you met their requirements, right?
Yeah.
So now I went to the registrar's office before I asked you guys to do this, and I looked them in the eye and I said, "When do you stamp it if a person graduates in May?" And the guy says, "We would stamp it for May, even though we may not get around to doing that until June." I said, "Are you sure?" And he looked at me and says, "Yeah, I'm sure. Get out of here, Baldy." So I was pretty confident by the way he looked at me, like, "Who do you think you're talking to?" That he knew that it would be stamped in a timely manner, so that you wouldn't run into a situation where they're stamping it July, even though you graduated in May, right? I mean, they should stamp it May, even though they're not doing it to July, because you graduated in May, didn't you?
Yeah.
So I think, but I see your point, just to be super
Yeah.
careful. See your transcript, and that's
Yeah.
the way you schedule your exam.
And I remember calling them like, this is my situation. I have an exam scheduled. If you don't stamp it, we're going to have a huge problem. So please take care of this. So that's a very important thing. And then you have this 210-day deadline is also really important. That's basically kind of goes hand in hand with this, because if you're taking classes to meet the requirements and they're in progress when you send your application in, you then have to send in your final transcripts within 210 days to say, like, yes, here you go, here's my proof, I actually passed all those classes, here's my final transcripts.
Remember, you're getting approved in advance, right? But there's a chance that you didn't finish those classes that you were in at the time, so you've got 210 days to send your final transcripts in to prove that you completed those classes. I'm sure you all understood that, but I can't help it, sorry. Occupational hazard.
Okay, so then the next thing I kind of put up here is, what do you have to do post-application? You take all your exams, and then now you have to decide, do you want to be licensed in Washington or California? I wanted to be licensed here because that's where I live. So I know that Jake and I we were kind of confused in this step, because basically if you go on the NASBA website or the Washington State Board of Accountancy website and you're typing in score transfer, they have their own form, and you basically have to pay this fee to say, yes, transfer my scores to California. The problem is I ended up paying that fee, and it's not a huge fee, but you end up paying this fee from NASBA, and they transfer your scores, but California is super picky, and they won't accept that score unless you fill out their own form, which I linked here for you guys, and I think John's going to share the slides later. So I linked the form here. It's the authorization for the release of your examination information. You basically take that form. I emailed it to the Washington State Board of Accountancy, and then I just, on there it says like where they need to mail it, and what they'll do is they'll fill it out for you with all your score, here's all your passing scores, and then they will mail it to California directly, and then they'll mail you a copy, which is nice.
I think that happened. That was my fault, because I called Washington and California and asked them, "Is this how it works?" And I was told over the phone.
Yeah.
I probably should have asked for something in writing, so I think I advise you guys to do it that way.
Yeah, it's confusing. It gets confusing, but
go through California.
Yeah, you just use their form. And then the last thing is taking your ethics exam. This is kind of like after the fact, and then he talked about the professional experience. I kind of recommend just go ahead and do these three things together. Basically, if you're starting full-time in public accounting or however way you're going to get your professional experience, once you know you have that experience, that person like signs off on a form saying, yes, they worked here for a year, whatever. And then that's one form, and then you have to complete your ethics exam, which you have to purchase from Cal CPA. and then the score transfers. The reason I say just you might as well do all of these things together. If you want to knock out the ethics exam right after you take your CP, your 4 parts, that's kind of a personal choice.
It's good for 1 year.
Yeah.
So if you take it, make sure you don't take it. It's a 50-question take-home exam. So it's an open book exam that you do from home. And I'm not telling you how to cheat on the ethics exam, but it's interesting how many questions in the practice questions are just like the final exam.
Yeah, and it's also, you also have to score. Fun fact, this is like not part of the Washington thing, but the ethics exam is 50 questions and you have to get 45 of them right, which seems like, oh, how bad could that be? But it's actually pretty confusing. Even though it's open book, I thought it was like kind of confusing.
I took it, I looked up as many questions as I could as the practice exam questions, so I kind of matched them up. Oh, that's kind of the same thing, but a little bit different. And I was able to answer like 45 of them that way, and then 5 I had to actually learn something.
Read the book. Yeah, I remember being made fun of when I decided I wanted to take the ethics exam because I I printed the book and I had it bound, and everyone I was like taking notes, and everyone was like, Elise, like, what are you doing? just control F in the book. So I didn't end up reading the rest of it because everyone was giving me a hard time. But yeah, that's kind of what I recommend. I definitely 100% recommend going through Washington. California Board of Accountancy, and I know this presentation isn't to like hate on the California Board of Accountancy, but they are such a pain to deal with. I don't think I'm up there with you as far as how many times you've called, but when I was trying to get my license number, I know that you get approved for your license, whatever, and then you have to send another check, and then they wait. There's this time frame after they cash your check between then and when someone decides to issue you a license number. And I was calling you got my money, you cashed my check, it came out of my account. Like, how are you recognizing this revenue? Like, I was getting so technical on them. I was getting so frustrated. But yeah, a lot of people.
Multi-performance obligation.
I was like, so you already cashed the check, but you haven't performed the obligation of issuing me my license. And they were just, I think they were really happy to give me my number by the time they did. But yeah, a lot of people don't know about this Washington method option. I know a lot of staff that start with my firm will say, or they'll text me right before they start full time, and they'll say like, oh, Elise, what do I do? Is there time to study? California didn't approve my application, and now here I am in October, and I haven't even taken an exam, and I don't even have an NTS. And I'm like, yeah, that's harder. You should have gone through Washington. And they're like, oh, I didn't know I can do that. Like, no one told me. My school doesn't have, a class or like a presentation like this. So I think you're really getting like your foot in the door here to kind of know the best method to kind of attack this. So.
Okay, so in terms of the Washington option, guys, if I may, I'm going to tell you that this form is the beginning, right? I mean, you got to do this first. So if you're going to do that, get this form off of Washington's website is where I got this. You take it to the registrar's office. They stamp it. They send it direct, right? Okay. All right. That's most of what I have about the process. Oh, I wanted to show you that one thing, and then I'm going to throw it out to you guys with questions. This worksheet is available on the Accounting Resource Center. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and you can populate it with the classes that meet the requirements. Okay, so all I did, guys, is I went ahead and kind of played jazz with it and put classes in. 100, 101, 301, 302, 305. You got to take those classes. I put 4 accounting electives that I chose. These are not the only accounting electives, right? For example, I put 504 in there because I teach that, okay? But, 509 would also count as an accounting class, etc. So I did that. That's how I put together the 24 units. right? 24 business units. Don't forget that math classes count, your economics. So I'm just taking classes that would be consistent with the tip sheet that I showed you, right? And I'm just sticking them in there. So there was my 24 business. And then what? Then I had some additional accounting classes. I had two more down here, okay, that I stuck in, and I just put these two in red because I think those are good classes to take that are relevant to the CPA exam. Okay, so I put those in there. Then what? Then I put some classes in for the ethics. Notice I split Business 320. Yes, I put it there, even though I told you not to take it. But that's why I had to take two accounting classes instead of one, because took Business 320 as one of the options. But you sit here. No, I have four electives. So I'm not sure how I'm doing this, but Business 320, I stuck in here two, and then I put one in the ethics column. You can split classes across columns. You can split them, what, 24, the 24, if you have a class that there's a trickle over of accounting units, you can put it in the accounting column here, the 6 units in the accounting column. Okay, so you can work with this spreadsheet that's on there, put it together, and what some students do is they go ahead and they go through this, and then they come to me just to audit it, right? And say, hey, and I might start, I'll put this over here, put that over there, whatever, right? And so that's something that's a very, very good resource. What I really like about it is it's linked to the tip sheet. And so when you have that thing opened up, that you can put the tip sheet over and it turns green if you've met the requirements. That's John, you guys don't know John O'Shaughnessy? John O'Shaughnessy put this thing together. He did a very nice job with that. So that is also available on the Resource Center. Huh? No, go ahead, ask now.
Well, I was just looking at this, and I don't see any accounting ethics for the ethic column, so we don't particularly need one.
The one that I put up?
I just see auditing in the headed, 405, 682, and then legal aspects of business.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I think I did this before it was a requirement to have the accounting industry ethics. So yeah, you would have to have 3 units of accounting industry ethics. That's right, because that requirement clicked in a little bit later. Question? Yes. As long as in the title it says accounting. It doesn't matter that it's offered out of the finance department. The title of the class is accounting analysis or something, financial analysis. So yeah, you should be fine. Question? Well, it's going to cost you more, and those programs often are attractive to the firms and stuff, and so they kind of recruit out of there. So usually, if you're, for example, UC Berkeley has the BCPA program in which you can get 30 units of Berkeley classes. And I'm just going to be honest with you, the firms are all over them like they're God's gift to the accounting world, okay? And so students take it through that kind of a program because there's kind of like a job waiting for them when they get out. But if you're sitting there and saying, no, I don't need a program like that, I see no real advantage to taking it from a program like that versus just taking the extra units you need at community college. In fact, sometimes UC Berkeley has a system in which I teach there, and I can only give the students a maximum GPA of 3.4. So I end up having to create winners and losers in my class, and I'm thinking to myself, this person's getting a D in this class because my GPA has to be a certain minimum, when they could have gotten the same thing at a community college and took the class at a community college and got the units they need for the CPA. So I don't really recommend those unless you're trying to get that other benefit, which is the sort of, automatic job kind of thing waiting for you at the end. Not that any university can guarantee that, but there does tend to be a correlation there. I see another question.
In terms of graduating here with a bachelor's in accounting, is there a minimum GPA requirement?
Just what you need to get the degree, right? I think the degree has a minimum. I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know that question. I'm sorry. I'm not the Albert. Can you go get Albert? Albert Koo is, so I would recommend you go to the business department for that to see Albert. He's the guru on what you need to do to graduate. But if you ask him a CPA question, he'll say, well.
Actually, I have another question.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about recertification? Is that done after how many years and continuing?
after you get your license, your first license, okay, you have to renew it, is the correct word, John. You have to renew it by your first birthday after you get the license. So if your birthday's in June and you got your license in January, you'd have to renew it in June. After that, it's every 2 years. It's every 2 years. And in those 2-year periods, you have to have acquired 80 CPE within that 2-year period, with no less than 20 coming in any 1 year. And if you're involved in government audits, 24 of the units need to be government-related CPE. Just stop at the 80, okay? I'm going to stop. I'm going to have the discipline to stop myself at the 80 over that 2-year period, with no less than 20 being in any 1 year. And that happens every 2 years.
So
after that.
we have 2 years. How long to complete those 80 units?
2 years. Within the 2 years, but you can't have any less than 20 in any 1 year. So you can have 20 and 60, 40 and 40, but you can't have 2 and 78. Thank you. That you can't have. Okay, so you have to have at least 20 in any 1 year. And that's every 2 years. Continuing professional education. Most people get CPE online these days. Okay, very few people go to a class and get continuing professional education. I teach continuing professional education for government classes, and so they stick a camera in my face and I have to sit there and try to act like I'm not reading the teleprompter, and then people log into that and they sit there and they work on other things while my head is babbling on the screen, I'm sure. So that's why they can let an ugly dude like me do it. Although they said recently, John, we just want you to do audio from now on. So I'm like, okay. And I'm not sure what that meant. Any other questions? No? Nothing else? Okay, guys, I'm thinking we've had enough, unless you want me to start to go through the way the exam works. Yeah, we've had enough, right? Okay, so maybe we can do that another time, whatever. If you want to come to my office, one second. If you want to come to my office, though, I'm going to go ahead and put up my contact information. Okay. All right, thank you, guys. Thanks for coming, okay? All right. We'll see you next time.
Right. So my email is right here,
Okay.
and if you can send me the whole package,
Okay.
I'll make sure that
What I'll do is I'll send you the file, okay? But for the video, because it's too big to email, I'll upload it to YouTube and then I'll send you the link. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
a few questions.
Let me stop the recording though. Just.